Hockey Talk Show with you here on this Friday. Good to be here with you on the Friday show. Big show planned for you. As you can tell by the title of this episode, this is another NHL expansion Hockey Talk Show. We're going to be talking about the Seattle franchise that is going to be coming to the NHL. We're all assuming. We're all winking at one another as we take a look at what's going down with the league and the ability to move into Seattle as quickly as possible. I think if it was up to the National Hockey League, they would be in Seattle next year if they could. But they do have to wait on that Seattle Key Arena to be renovated, and that is going to be an issue. And we will wait and see how long that exactly takes. But the Oakview Group, who put that together, did do an interesting thing today. They registered some domain names for a potential Seattle franchise. And we're going to take a look at those names and see which ones make sense and which ones are total garbage. Now, there is one interesting thing about all of this, which is that, you know, everybody's sort of running with this story this morning, or today, I should say, on the Seattle franchise being named and all this stuff. You know, SB Nation did a whole write-up. It's been in a few publications that the Oakview Group went out and they grabbed the domain names of some potential team names. That's where we're getting this all from. But what I find to be pretty interesting about this is these are the guys that own the arena and that are renovating the arena and that end of it. They're not the potential ownership group for the National Hockey League. So I will put that little asterisk on this episode. We're going by the day's, news, which is that all these domain names were registered by the Oakview Group. But take that for what you will. Now, somebody has to park these names, right? If these are going to be potential, by the way, Seattle whatevers should be probably registered up and down by the National Hockey League. I mean, they should be protecting that investment, which is going to be in the future. So somebody's got to jump out and start grabbing all these names. But why it's the group that is putting together the arena is kind of interesting to me. I would assume that this would fall on obviously the ownership group that's moving in or the National Hockey League themselves to go ahead and grab these domain names. So I will say, in an era where, one person writes something and then 4,700 articles are reproduced based off of one bit of bad information, there's a smidge of an asterisk on this one for me, at least, in that the Oakview Group registered for these names. That's how this all was originated. And, take that for what you will. So we'll have a little fun with it, talking about the potential names. We went over some of these already. But now that we actually have domain names registered, it kind of takes it to a new level. So we will review those for sure. So going to do a lot of talk on Seattle and the potential names for the franchise moving forward. Going to talk about Ottawa Senators, which means I'm talking about your team, no matter what that is, because the Sens GM had a little press conference, had a little press gathering, and he went ahead and put his foot in his mouth once again about Karlsson. And it makes me feel like Karlsson might be on the move. Cameraman takes a spill in the NHL. It's pretty hilarious. We'll show the video with you. And the Vegas Golden Knights could take over first place in the entire league tonight when Gerard Gallant and the boys go back to Florida. This is what's interesting about this game for me tonight. I think there's somewhere around 8 to 10 people that are formerly with the Florida Panther franchise that are coming back as Vegas Golden Knights tonight for the first time. So obviously Gerard Gallant and Marchessault and Riley Smith, those are the big three that we know. But, other coaches and scouts and so on and so forth that left the Panthers to go work for the Vegas Golden Knights, they're all going back too. And from what I understand, they all made the trip so that they can make a return to South Florida tonight. So that'll be pretty interesting. If Gerard Gallant could go back to his former team, which he was very unfairly fired from, and take over first place of the entire National Hockey League in the franchise's first year. That is ridiculous. It's absurd and ridiculous, and I still can't believe it's happening. But at least I jumped on the bandwagon quicker than most of the other hockey media in the world out there. I mean, seriously. I mean, I've been a big proponent of this team, and I talked about how good they are, and I just like their system, and I like Gerard a lot. I like the way he coaches, a former Islander employee like myself, and I just know he's a smart hockey guy. But still, you know, I thought that they were going to be good, and I called out that they were going to make the playoffs from a long, long time ago. But for them to be this good, I mean, that's a first overall in the entire National Hockey League in January. I mean, that's just really, really surprising to me. And I think everybody's got to be surprised, including Vegas themselves. I think they believed in themselves and they thought that they would be doing well. But even them to be doing this well, I mean, I think that's a surprise for pretty much everybody. No doubt. It is absolutely a surprise for me. Let me know in the comments. Are you surprised? Are you really surprised? Now, I'm not saying at the beginning of the year to now. I'm saying like 3-4 weeks ago, maybe a month into the season to now. You know, with the great start that they got off to, knowing that they got off to that great start, are you surprised that the Vegas Golden Knights are this good? Are you surprised that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be challenging for first place in the entire National Hockey League this evening? I mean, how could you not be? Not only am I surprised that Vegas is challenging, I'm surprised that anybody is challenging the Tampa Bay Lightning. And by the way, what a massive win for the Vegas Golden Knights against the Tampa Bay Lightning last night. 4-1, 4 different goal scorers in the game, and it wasn't close from the get. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights, I don't want to say manhandled Tampa Bay, because it wasn't like it was an 8-2 game. But regardless of that, I mean, 4-1, it never really seemed at any moment that Vegas wasn't in control of where that game was going last night. That was really, really surprising for me. Really surprising. With the win in Tampa last night, Vegas Golden Knights became the 5th NHL expansion team to win 30 games in a season. By the way, I remind you, it is January. So a lot of these teams, the Kings in 67, the Flyers in 67, the Ducks in 93, and the Panthers in 93, all won 31 games and 33 games. Vegas has won 30, and it's only January. They won 33 games, 31 games in the whole year. It's only January, and they've already hit this point. So they are far and above the greatest expansion franchise in the history of the National Hockey League. I mean, I could tell you that right now in January. Now, that Florida Panther team did make a hell of a run. So maybe that statement's a little presumptuous, a little premature. But the pace that they're on, the way that they're playing, and again, you can't even sit here and go, you know, major injury. They're such a team. They're such a cohesive team unit. I mean, they lost their goaltender for how long, and they never lost a step. And they lost their goaltender, who is a Stanley Cup champ, and they lost their backup goaltender, and they lost their third string goaltender, and they still managed to be in a position now on January 19th where they can take over the first spot in the entire National Hockey League. It's just insane to me. Flat out insane. Comment below. Let me know you're here. Eddie V, what's happening, my man? Good to see you back again. Facebook and YouTube Live. I see we got a bunch of people in the chat room. Shoot a comment over. Let me know what you guys want to talk about tonight, what teams you follow, so we can customize the show for you. On the phones at 631-438-1768. I know people don't like to pick up the phones, but I like to say the number anyway, just in case you want to get in there live and debate with me. You could, of course, always keep it to the comments. That is totally cool. On Twitter as well, at Hockey Talk Show and hockeytalkshow.com. Big news for the New York Rangers today, and it's not good news. Shat Deuces, maybe the best nickname in all of hockey, definitely for the New York Rangers. Shat Deuces out indefinitely. He will have to have surgery on his left knee. He said that he's going to be sidelined indefinitely, but he plans on being back in a Ranger uniform before the end of the regular season. Now, that's nice and everything, but to be honest with you, even if he came back with 5 games left, unless the Rangers are, really in a hunt, it's not going to really make much of a difference. To me, the Rangers losing their, McDonough's their 1A defenseman, but, he's a key piece, especially on the power play. He was, I viewed Shattenkirk as the big plus for the Rangers because they didn't really have much going for them in the offseason other than this guy who is a huge top caliber player who could have taken a lot more money anywhere else. But he chose to stay here in New York. That was a big coup for the New York Rangers. And I always felt like he gave him a little bit of a boost just showing up every day, putting on a uniform, regardless of his play on the ice, which was pretty decent. Shat Deuces ain't nothing to shake a stick at. He's having a pretty all right year. I mean, again, the Rangers aren't skyrocketing to first place, but he's 5 goals, 18 assists, 23 points in 46 games, point every other game. He's minus 14, isn't horrific. Again, this is not not the best Ranger team I've ever seen, but losing Shattenkirk is definitely going to be, I think, have a very negative effect on the New York Rangers because they rely on his minutes. I feel like it's one of those teams where they're barely holding on. You look at the New York Islanders and the injuries that are racking up for those guys, and they've fallen off without Boychuk, without Bailey for 4 games. They've lost some key guys. Cizikas is out, and they've really, really fallen off. And, same thing goes for Pittsburgh. If they were to lose any one of their guys, I'd be sitting here saying the same exact thing. When you're dangling, when you're holding on, I could throw Toronto in this mix too. When you're sitting there and you're holding on and you lose a key guy, man, that's tough. That is tough. So the Rangers defense will shake out like this now. McDonough with Holden, most likely. Shea with D'Angelo, Smith, and Kampfer. D'Angelo, not all that thrilling. I thought D'Angelo would be a little bit more. You come in wearing Esposito's number, you better be good. And he's been okay. And I thought Brendan Smith should be playing a little bit better. I would think that Brendan Smith could hold on to that 4th defensive position, but he's been playing on that 3rd pairing. So we'll wait and see there. But Shattenkirk out indefinitely. Not good for the New York Rangers. This could turn them from buyers to sellers. But they've been playing well lately, so we'll see where they're at. They've been handling their business, the Rangers. They've been doing what they have to do to keep points on the board and maintain that wild card position, which, by the way, is the first one and the one to have, because the second one is the wild card of death, because you got to face the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, and that's going to be horrific for any team that just barely makes it in to the playoffs. But 1 point ahead of the Islanders and tied for points with Pittsburgh, and they got 1 game in hand on Pittsburgh. Actually, 2 games in hand and 1 game in hand on the Islanders. 3 points ahead of the Flyers, and they've played 1 more game than the Flyers. So it is crucial times and very sensitive times for the New York Rangers. Hockey Talk Show with you here on a Friday. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Appreciate it. Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We talked about Vegas taking over first place. We talked about the fact that the Rangers are going to be without Shat Deuces, which is going to be devastating to them. What is that going to do to them at the deadline? Buying or selling? Does that change the trade market around a little bit? I know what does change the trade market around quite a bit. Every time Pierre Dorian opens up his mouth, we have a new crop of sensational headlines to talk about. Pierre Dorian, by the way, for a hockey talk show host, is gold. Anytime he wants to say anything, That is all right with me. He can go ahead talking all he wants. I'll bring up the CBC article for you guys so you can see it over there on your screens. There's the headline. Senators want to resign Carlson, but will listen to offers. We have to be realistic and understand our situation, says the Ottawa general manager. Why would he say this is beyond me. I have no idea why he would say this. Pierre Dorion finally acknowledged on Thursday that his team might miss the playoffs and that he had conversations with rival GMs about making deals. Although he still calls re-signing Carlson a priority, he also can't walk away from an outstanding deal. He says, and I quote, "We have to be realistic. If we're not going to make the playoffs, we're going to have to make changes. We're going to be really smart about how we go about things. We have a plan for whatever situation we're in. And at that point in time, we'll test that and we'll make sure we make the right decision for this organization." While Dorion has been speaking with other GMs up to this point, he always said that Carlson and Stone were untouchable. But Thursday admitted that he would have it to at least consider a solid offer for the captain. "Our first priority with Carlson is to sign him," said Dorion. "He's a special player. If a team offers you an offer you can't turn down, you listen. But our first priority is to sign Erik Karlsson and Erik Karlsson to be a Senator for life." He went on to continue to say, "No rash decisions will be made. We have to be realistic and understand our situation. If we don't make the playoffs, we have to start planning for our future. And that way we can take a step backwards to take 2 steps forward." Dumber words have never been spoken. Hey, Liz, welcome in. Oh, my God. Send Carlson to the Rangers. I would love to have him. Who wouldn't, though? Yeah, that's the thing. Who wouldn't love to have Carlson? Boy, he would look good in that blue sweater, though, wouldn't he? He would look really, really good. Puck-moving defenseman. Yeah, everybody would want him. I would even say, go ahead and send McDonough over there. Isn't McDonough a free agent when Carlson is? You might have a quick and easy swap right there. That's the question. There you go, Liz. Would you trade McDonough for Carlson? It's not improving your team so much because Carlson and McDonough together is an improvement. But if you had to give up McDonough for Carlson, would you do it? Let me think about that. McDonough's a free agent in 2019-2020. So you got him for this season and next. Which is the same thing as Carlson, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm pretty sure you got Carlson for that long, too. So that would actually be a fairly even swap as far as contract and status goes. As far as talent goes, well, you'd have to give the edge to Carlson on that one. Let me see here. Carlson is signed, this year and next. He's at 6.5, where McDonough's at 4.6. God, McDonough was a steal and a half, wasn't he not? McDonough may have been one of the greatest steals of all time. And he's affordable, and he's a good player. Falling off a little bit, but he's a good player. It would be great to have the two of them together. Imagine that as a top pairing. Look out. Problem with the Rangers here's the problem with a lot of other teams, too. What do you give up for an Erik Karlsson? You have to give up the farm. I mean, look what Dorion just paid for to get, Matt Duchene on his team. Paid the farm. Who could you even send the other way to entice him? I got to be honest with you. There's like nobody on the roster right now for the Rangers that could do it. I mean, who? Who are you going to send? Mika Zibanejad? You going to send him back? By the way, talking about steals, he might be in there at number 2. He's only making $1 million this year. And he's carrying this team offensively. And that was a steal. I didn't realize the Rangers had become such bargain basement hunters. McDonough, Zibanejad, Grabner. I think Grabner's making under $1 million or right around $1 million. Everybody and their mother is going to throw something at Carlson. Everybody and their mother. That would be question number 2 for me for the night. What would you give up from your favorite team for Erik Karlsson? To me, the other team that would be super desperate to get him is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, you have that rivalry there, but let's be honest, the Leaf-Senator rivalry is not as big as the, Canadians-Leafs rivalry. Not nearly as big. And Lord knows that they need a defenseman desperately, and they have the offensive pieces to put it together. And they have some draft picks, too. And they already did a deal together for Phaneuf. I have to think that they could probably pull this off if they really wanted to. If there's a team that can get the Senators to part with Karlsson before the trade deadline, it would have to be the Leafs, but it would have to involve Nylander or Marner. It would have to. It would have to, right? How do you make a move for a guy like Karlsson and you not get Nylander or Mitch Marner? Out of principle alone, you can't even entertain that deal. And I don't know if the Leafs want to do it. Could the Leafs get him without one of those guys in the offseason? Maybe. But I don't know. That'd be something to think about. I don't know what Pierre Dorian's problem is, though. I mean, I don't know if he's a shit stirrer or what, because honestly, it's not even necessary to say this. I mean, when you think about it, of all the things in the world, like general managers notoriously, like players, never say peep when you interview them. They have this great ability to talk for 4 minutes straight, and then you analyze what they said, and you realize, oh, no, they didn't say anything. They said nothing. And here's this guy going, well, I guess if I got a good enough offer, I trade him. Like, why are you even saying that? Just shut up. Just shut up. Say our goal is to sign him. That's it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. You know? That's not a crazy thing to say to a media person who's asking about a player who's still got a year left on his deal. Say, thanks for the question. To be honest with you, our goal is to re-sign him. And we're going to put everything we have into re-signing him. That's all. He's sitting there going, well, I mean, if we got it. Yeah, of course, if they offered you the world, if they offered you Nylander and Mitch Marner, yeah, of course you would take it. But nobody, general managers typically don't play the hypothetical game. That's left to the pundits, right? The managers say as little as possible so that they're not feeding the pundits. This dope, and he's not a dope, he's a smart guy, is out there going, yeah, I guess we would trade him. Maybe we would trade him. All right, Liz, you might be the smartest person here. Maybe he's just trying to get people talking about his team. That might be it. That actually might be it. That might be the thing. Daniel, I'm sorry you're having some issues, but I think is everybody else good? Are you guys all seeing a picture tonight? Are you getting a good feed in there? Just want to make sure. Give me the thumbs up if you're okay. If you're having an issue on YouTube, you can always shoot over to the Facebook page, which you can click on by going to hockeytalkshow.com. Maybe Dorian is just trying to keep the Senators in the newspaper. Maybe that is it. Maybe he's trying to sell some tickets. I don't know. The thought occurred to me of maybe he's literally just trying to drum up interest to see what he can get. But there's other ways to do that. I mean, you could easily just float out to the other teams. Look, what do you want to offer me for Karlsson? If I was to move him, which I'm not saying I am, where's your head at? Where would you be at? That's all. Quick text message. You don't even have to call the person anymore. Shoot him a quick text. You can shoot him a private Snapchat. You can Snapchat your fellow general managers. And I know what you're thinking. Lou Lamoriello doesn't Snapchat. I got news for you. He's the biggest Snapchatter out of all of them. Okay? Loves the Snapchat. Big filter guy. Big filter guy. You create a bidding war between general managers. It's a good point. The problem is with Carlson, though, is he's got that trade list and floating it out there. That's why it doubly doesn't make sense. A, you can just go to your general managers and tell them that he's available or that he's not available, that you want to see what you can get for him. And B, he's got a no trade, so it doesn't even really matter for 20 of the team. I think he's got 15 or whatever it is. It doesn't even matter for more than half of the league, so drumming up interest, doesn't really count. Literally, you only have to contact 10 general managers, Maybe he's trying to light a fire under his players, letting them know that everyone is replaceable. I mean, I could certainly appreciate that. I understand that part of it, but that should be up to the coach, And I would agree with that too. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but there's already been so much animosity between these two. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if lighting a fire is the way to go at this point, because there's already been some fires. They've already had to put out some of these fires. Like, nobody had to talk about the fact that he had to submit a trade list, yet they were out there talking about it. And from what I understand now, in hindsight, that came from the organization. That didn't come from Carlson. It came from the organization that he submitted the list, which we didn't really know at the time. Which I think at the time I was saying, why are they even talking about it? You don't have to bring it up. It's a formality. I don't know. Eddie, Lou Lamoriello reminds me of the guy in the 80s. Kinder Super. I thought at first you were going for the Six Flags guy. He reminds me of the guy, the Six Flags commercial guy. Remember the old guy who used to dance? That to me was crazy Lou Lamoriello. Remember the Six Flags old guy? Missed that guy. Should bring that dude back. That was classic. Remember the world when this was happening? More flags, more fun. That's what I'm talking about. There he is. There he is. Back in the good old days when Junior Soprano was pumping Six Flags to all the rest of us. So, yeah, I don't know what they're doing over there in Ottawa. I mean, I don't know what Pierre Dorian's goal is. He obviously wanted Matt Duchene from the get. He went out and made a big splash and got him. And that's proven to be not the right move. He couldn't get Dion Phaneuf out of the league, out of the Senators locker room. I can't blame him for that. He did, by the way, trade Mika Zibanejad for Derek Brassard, who's also now on the trade block. Not really off to a great start if you're Pierre Dorian. Not really off to a great start. From what I understand, I don't know hide nor hair of the guy. From what I understand, he's a very nice gentleman. But he's not really blowing me away with amazing moves so far early on in his run here. Let's talk about the Seattle franchise, and then we'll show you the cameraman that did the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in the National Hockey League so far this season. The as I said at the top, again, we have to put a little bit of an asterisk on this. Let's take this conversation with a grain of salt. Salt guy. The Oakview Group apparently went ahead and registered 13 domains regarding what could be possibly names for the new Seattle franchise. And I say they haven't even really officially granted them yet. But they registered some names, and then everybody started writing articles on this. And again, I question, why is the Oakview Group the one doing this? Wouldn't it be the National Hockey League, or wouldn't it be the potential ownership group? It's funny because it's something that I never even thought of. But as soon as they started talking about this, anybody who was anybody would have started going out there and started registering Seattle blank. Go ahead and register 400 at $9 a pop. You can go back and sell it to whoever. You can sell it to the National Hockey League for a good amount of money. But anyway, I digress. So let's get into that. Let's talk about Seattle here a little bit as we bring back expansion into the Hockey Talk Show. I want to bring up something first that Pierre LeBrun said, which I thought was a pretty brilliant point, that the worst job in hockey, at least not right now, but soon, is the Seattle general manager. If the, quote, if, end quote, if the NHL, when the NHL expands there, that person will be spending the first 24 months on the job convincing the market that what happened in Vegas isn't normal and shouldn't be duplicated. Serious managing of expectations in Seattle. It's true. The Vegas Golden Knights have caught lightning in a bottle. You're the next one up on that line. Those are big shoes to fill. You better get out there right away and start selling the fact that that is not a normal thing and that that doesn't happen all the time. I mean, this is an excellent point from Pierre LeBrun. Excellent point, because this is so true. By the way, he went on to further say that the way the expansion draft was handled by the other general managers was a bit overzealous. That even some of the managers are talking to him, and he didn't name names, but he said that some of the managers are talking to him saying, we may have messed it up the way we handled the expansion draft. We may have spent too much time trying to procure deals and make sure this person wasn't taken and that person wasn't taken, instead of just realizing we're only going to lose one guy. You know, a lot of the teams went through lengths to not only save one player, but two or three. So I think a lot of the general managers in hindsight are having some remorse on that, because, you know, you look back at what Vegas was able to acquire and put together. Not only did they do good in the draft itself, but they did really good with deals. You know, they did really good with deals leading into it. They picked up a lot of great pieces with some of the deals that they made. So managers are going to be approaching this way different when Seattle comes around. And by the way, there's no guarantee that Seattle's going to get the exact same treatment that Vegas got. Now, I think that they're going to get good treatment. Again, they have to be better than Columbus and Nashville and Atlanta were. You know, that was their goal, to shoot better. Maybe they shot a little too high with Vegas, and they might bring it back down a little bit and settle it down somewhere in the middle. I really don't know. Again, if you're charging $650 million, maybe you better bring the best for the new owners. But we'll have to wait and see what happens, because there's going to be 31 owners in the league right now that are going to be sitting there convincing everybody else about why they should take it down a notch and shouldn't be up this high. Maybe instead of protecting 9 players, they'll get to protect 10 or 11 this time. You know what I mean? Like, there might be that slight little adjustment in there. We'll have to wait and see. But as far as the names go for the potential Seattle franchise, we go over to our SB Nation article to take a look. Look at that beautiful skyline, by the way. Let me remove that lower third for you guys. So, and you can see down here, there's the Key Arena right there. Sitting in that beautiful skyline. That's a nice skyline. It's pretty nice to look at. Not like Los Angeles with all the smog, or New York with all the graffiti. You can't look at a New York skyline without having a graffitied billboard in your way. All right, so here we go. According to DetroitHockey.net's Clark Rasmussen, SportLogo.net's Chris Creamer, who, by the way, is a great guy to follow. Chris Creamer does a good job if you like jerseys and sports logos and things like that. I guess they were the first ones to catch this. SB Nation wrote a whole big thing about it. The Oakview registered 38 different domains covering 13 potential nicknames for an NHL franchise. We will go through all of them. Let's start with number 13, the Seattle Renegades. Seattle Renegades. What do you think about that? Meh. Second one I'm going to give you here is one that I actually think could be the real name. I'm a big believer in this name, and the main reason is because it holds a lot of tradition with the National Hockey League. By the way, the Seattle Sticks royalties, that would be the best ever. That would be amazing. I would love to see that. We just need to get Sticks out there a little bit more, I think. But coming in at number 12, and again, this is in no real order, the Seattle Totems. I really think that the Seattle Totems could be a thing. Totem poles, the huge Native American population, the huge heritage of the Native Americans in the Pacific Northwest. Again, not only just in Seattle, but throughout the entire region. This is going to be another team like Vegas, like Arizona, you know, like the Dallas Stars were until Houston comes around. That is going to be a regionalized team, not a city-based team. You know what I mean? New York Rangers are a city-based team. Buffalo Sabres are a regionalized team. There's a big difference. You know, a lot of these markets, the Boston Bruins, they're in a city, but they are a regionalized team. Vermont, New Hampshire, they're in all these other little tiny markets, so it's kind of a big deal. Seattle is going to hope to be the same exact thing. They'll have close proximity to Vancouver, and they'll obviously have Vegas right there, and they'll have Anaheim and, you know, LA. But they're going to try and capitalize on a big area outside of just Seattle and the state of Washington. So, you know, going into, and again, it's not like they're just trying to appeal to the Native Americans, but a lot of people that aren't Native American can certainly appreciate, you know, that culture that's over there. So the Seattle Totems would be a pretty interesting one if that is what they were going to go with. There was a WHL team, which is discussed this the last time I think we were talking about the Seattle franchise, that was named the Totems. They almost joined the NHL. A lot of people may not know that, but the National Hockey League loves tradition, so that could be a thing. They registered the Seattle Evergreens as well. I don't really get this one at all. I don't know what I know what an evergreen is. I don't understand how an evergreen appeals to a hockey team. You know, and that being said, the Oklahoma City Thunder do exist and the Tampa Bay Lightning do exist. So naming a team after something in nature, not exactly a foreign thing, just pretty rare. The Seattle Sockeyes. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Sockeyes. Is it Sockeyes or Sockeyes? I would say Sockeyes. I don't know. It's a fish. That doesn't really seem all that cool, but if it's native to the North Atlantic, the North Pacific, excuse me, okay. If that's where they want to go. To me, that takes a lot of explaining, and that's a little too complicated. The Seattle Firebirds are the number 9 team, domain that they registered. And, that is just as generic as it gets. Like, Firebirds is a great name, certainly a great car if you're, you know, Italian and have a hairy chest and a gold medal. But, you know, outside of that, it's as generic as you can get. Although, wait, hold the horses. How about the Seattle Cougars? I'll pass on number 8 domain, the Seattle Cougars. How many Cougar teams do we have out there? And we don't need to ignite the older MILFs, so we'll leave the Seattle Cougars where it's at. The Seattle Emeralds is pretty interesting. Seattle is known as the Emerald City. A lot of greenery over there. I think it would be better than the Evergreen name. And also consider this, as the SB Nation article points out, you could refer to them as the Seattle M's, which is how the Mariners are referred to, as the M's. So, you know, M's EMS instead of just M''S. I like that little tie-in together. The Seattle Eagles is a little easy to say, but sounds a little funny. The Seattle Eagles. I don't know. Again, Eagles, very generic. And let's not forget the Philadelphia Eagles are a part of this. Whenever they can, teams try and not step on other teams' toes, even if they are in other leagues. But you certainly have to worry about that with the National Football League, because they have a big hold on their names. So that would be pretty tough. Here's another one that's pretty interesting to me. There's 1, 2, 3 more that I find really, really strong possibilities. And this is one of them, the Seattle Rainers. Now, it's not just because it rains in Seattle, but Rainier Mountain is one of the tallest Mount Rainier, I should say, is one of the tallest mountains in the United States. I guess it would be the Seattle Rainiers instead of Rainers. Maybe I'm saying that too much like a Long Islander. You know, the Rainers, I guess Seattle Rainiers, and of course Mount Rainier. And there was a baseball team that had the name the Seattle Rainiers because the Rainier Brewing Company, which is a local brewery over there, owned them not that long ago. So there's a possibility of bringing back that name. some history, some heritage. You know, the big mountain, the brewery, it's been around. The baseball team is no longer around. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think that is a good possibility. And it's a unique name, kind of like the Islanders or the Houston Texans, you know, something like that. Anytime you could name, you know, the Patriots, anytime you could name, you know, sort of after a region or type of people as opposed to a animal or fictitious animal, I think is a good thing. One of the more ridiculous ones that are on here is, and it's not the most ridiculous, is the Seattle Sea Lions. I'm not against sea lions by any stretch of the means, but sea lions don't necessarily strike fear in my heart. I don't think it's a necessarily strong name. A sea lion to me is not all that fierce. I mean, I guess if we're going to argue with each other, neither is a duck, you know, but I still think we could do better than the Seattle Sea Lions. Sandra chiming in with a couple of good ones here. Would they be junior totems? Evergreens is boring. Can't name it after a salmon. What a sad mascot. A tree in a jersey. That's why you can't go with evergreens. And a mountain on a jersey. Yeah, a mountain on a jersey would be it, but look at Colorado Avalanche's logo. That's pretty cool. And everybody likes the old Colorado Avalanche logo. You can definitely incorporate a mountain into a jersey. It would be better if it was the primary, you know, it'd have to be in the background of the actual logo. But yeah, I'm with you on that. That is a little bit of an odd one. But sea lions to me is just not that strong of a thing. Going back over to the list here, again, we're going through the 13 domain names that were registered by the Oakview Group. Here's another one that I think has a legit possibility, and I find this to be pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. The Seattle Whales. Let that settle in there for a sec. The Seattle Whales. I think a couple of things on this. I think the National Hockey League, it would behoove them. It would be in their, I love saying behoove. It would be in their best interest to involve the Whaler name back into the National Hockey League. That is still, by the way, a jersey that sells a ton. Still sells a ton. Whales are indigenous to the area. I mean, hell, it was on the front of the, it still is on the front of the Vancouver Canucks jersey. Is it still on the front of the Vancouver Canucks jersey? No, they got rid of the old C jerseys. Or is it still there? I think I'm having a seizure. I don't know. I'm trying to read four comments at once. I'm losing my mind. Anyway, the point is this. It's still there. The orca whale. The whale is an interesting one. I don't think you're stepping too much on the toes of the Vancouver Canucks. And I think you're bringing back a traditional value of the National Hockey League. Now, and Liz, you bring up an excellent point. Is that really right to do to the Hartford people? Because the Hartford Whalers is an institution in the league, no matter what. You know, it doesn't matter. And by the way, I don't think we ever get a franchise back in Hartford, which is sad. I think the league has just grown a little bit too past what that market size is. So I find myself in this weird place, and I wonder if you do too, where are you honoring the history of the Hartford Whalers by bringing that back and putting a Seattle Whale or something like that, or the Seattle Whales in Seattle? Or are you dumping on them by doing that? I don't know. Eddie V, the killer whale is the national bird of Vancouver. I believe that. Let's see here. There is a National Women's Hockey League team that is the Whale. That is very true. Pier 39 in San Francisco is more famous for sea lions. That's true. I just don't like the sea lions to me. That's not that strong. When you hear a thing like the Seattle Whales, though, that makes me stop in my place. Like, what do you think about that? I would love to see that. By the way, you look at that color scheme, that green, blue, and gray. I know it's very close to what Vancouver has, so you obviously couldn't do too much, couldn't really go there. But you look at, the Seattle Mariners uniforms over the course of time, outside of that gold and blue one that they had, and you look at, their football team, that's sort of that green. Those are the colors of that area. Now, you may make the argument that Vancouver has those colors on lockdown. But I think that it's possible. It's possible you can go with a similar sort of color scheme and not upset the Vancouver Canucks and still do something that's native to your area. If you look at the Thunderbirds, if I'm not mistaken, I meant to look this up a little bit here. The Seattle Thunderbirds, who are there right now in Seattle as the junior team, they have a similar color scheme to what the Vancouver Canucks have. So that is something to consider. I mean, see, there you go. I mean, that's exactly what I think they would be going for. And those are the exact colors that the Hartford Whalers had. They're slightly different, a little bit more duller, and they incorporate the gray than the Vancouver Canucks colors. But, if you're Vancouver, I don't know if you want to really let those guys get into your color scheme too much. So the Seattle Whales is definitely a possibility. Here's one that's a smidge on the absurd side, the Seattle Kraken. Now, Krakens are a real thing as far as they were a legit legendary sea creature. Mythical as they may have been, the Kraken is a legit thing. But release the Kraken, I mean, how are you going to get away from that joke? Again, like the Cougars, the modern nomenclature of our time has ruined some of these things. The Seattle Seahawks colors, exactly. I mean, you look at the area; that's the area's colors. It's like getting upset. I got upset at somebody on Twitter last night because they criticized the New York Islanders uniforms. Why do the New York Islanders wear orange and blue? Because it's the state colors, you jackass. That's why. I mean, there's just some colors that are indigenous to areas. And if you don't know the state flag colors and why a team is color schemed a certain way, don't open your mouth up on Twitter. Now, this happens to be a fellow radio host, so that's why maybe I'm a little bit harder on him than I should be. But it really upset me last night when people speak out of their turn and in areas that don't really belong to them. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I digress. The Seattle Kraken, I'm not really all that 100% sure about that one. And finally, this one's up for debate, and SB Nation ranked this as their number one possibility. I'm not going to go there, but the Seattle Seals. The Seattle Seals. What do you think about that? Now you have the Golden Seals tie-in here. Again, a former franchise of the National Hockey League. I know the league loves history, so to go along with the Whales, the Seals, the Totems, I think they're going to be intrigued by these names that have some historical significance to them. You could bring back the S with the Seals. Let me bring that in here. They were the Golden Seals, by the way, in California. They had that big, here, let's bring up for those of you guys that are unfamiliar with the Seals and how their logo looked. I'll bring this up on the screen for you guys to check out. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, sorry. Here you go. There's the Seals uniforms. They had this classic teal with the almost Chargers-like old Chargers color scheme with the Seals logo. This was their logo. This was, you might be thinking to yourself, this doesn't look like a seal. Well, if you were doing as much drugs as they were doing back when they designed this damn thing, you'd think differently. You'd think honestly differently. Back then they were experimenting with a lot of drugs. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Now, some of you lay the claim that San Jose really owns the Seals thing because that's where the team played prior to this. But who knows? And I've seen, although I don't really see on this page, the Seals, they had that S, but it said EALS inside the S. So that was another possibility. Not the cleanest, greatest logo, I think, but certainly some tradition there. There's certainly some tradition there. So think about that. All right, here's the 13 names. You tell me in the comments below which one you think is the absolute best. You can only pick one. And you got to pick one. The Seattle Renegades, the Seattle Totems, the Seattle Evergreens, the Seattle Sockeyes, the Seattle Firebirds, Seattle Cougars, Seattle Emeralds, Seattle Eagles, Seattle Rainiers, Seattle Sea Lions, Seattle Whales, Seattle Kraken, and Seattle Seals. I am most intrigued by the Whales. I'm still there. I'm still pretty damn intrigued by the Whales. That's one that I'm not going to get over anytime soon. The fact that we could actually have the Hartford Whalers logo back into the National Hockey League, which again, we all know continues to be one of the favorite logos of all time. Just the ability to have that, to me, is super intriguing. Super, super intriguing. You know? Again, you don't have the H and W to make that wonderful logo, but I'm sure you can squeeze an S into there somehow where the W is. I don't really know. Maybe that's not the logo altogether. Maybe you do something different with the Seattle Whales. But, you know, maybe it is a little bit situation where you're not called the Whalers, but you're called the Whales, and it's a little bit of a throwback and a tip of the cap to the historical franchise that continues to be well respected. Liz likes the Kraken the best, but still thinks about the Seattle Flying Fish. Seattle Flying Fish would be a thing. But then again, I think they would go with the Sockeyes if that were the case, wouldn't it? We should put that in right now and see if this, let's see. SeattleFlyingFish.com. Let's see if the Oakview Group owns it. Nope. Well, at least not yet. At least they don't own it just yet. All right, continue to throw your comments below. What do you think is the best name for the Seattle franchise? You heard all 13 of them. The Seals, Kraken, Whales, Sea Lions, Rainiers, Eagles, Emeralds, Cougars, Firebirds, Sockeyes, Evergreens, Totems, and Renegades. Which one do you like the best? Let me know in the comments below. And finally, before we get to the picks for tonight, I promise you guys something funny. And this is it. During the game last night against the New York Islanders over there in Barclays, a camera guy was trying to get on the ice in between one of the commercials, and hilarity ensued.
You know, there's a cameraman coming out between periods.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Wait. Oh, see?
Wait till you see the
-5 talk show host points. It wasn't even up on the screen. Apologies all around. Apologies all around. Here it is.
You know, there's a cameraman coming out between periods. Oh, we almost got caught. Oh, wait till you see the fantastic finish. Oh, over you go. You know?
I don't know who this guy is, but here he is, struggling to get onto the in between the benches. He almost takes a dive. By the way, I can't really see who this is behind him, but look at the Islander player's face behind him.
There's a cameraman coming out between periods. Oh, we almost got caught. Oh, wait till you see the fantastic finish. Oh,
and then the idiot dives over the boards. Like,
you know, there's a cameraman coming out between periods.
Again, watch the Islander.
Oh, we almost got caught. Oh, wait till you see the fantastic finish. Oh, over you go.
Oh, so good. So good. Oh, man, that's good. I like seeing that. I like people falling. Ask my wife. I will laugh at nothing harder than when somebody takes a spill, especially on ice. Those YouTube videos where people are just slipping on ice and falling, I love them. Can't get enough. Can't get enough. And I know what you're thinking. And not like when the old ladies fall, especially when the old ladies fall. Vegas and Florida tonight, 7:30 start. Give me the Vegas Golden Knights. They will move into sole possession of #1 in the National Hockey League this evening. I think they're just on a streak. They'll be on a high after beating Tampa Bay. I think that Florida will have a lot to prove. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's tough for Vegas on the back-to-back. But again, I just like the Golden Knights in this game. I don't know. I think they're on an unbelievable roll, and they won't be able to be stopped. Montreal and the Caps. Give me the Capitals. That'll be the NHL Network game tonight, nationally televised, so you guys can catch it on the NHL Network if you have that. 7:30 start there. The NBC game this evening is a late one between the Kings and the Ducks. Ooh, Kings and Ducks. That's going to be a tough one. Who do I like, the Kings or the Ducks? I'm checking here to see the last 10 games. That's always important when you want to decide how well a team is playing. Kings are 4-5-1. Ducks are 6-3-1. Who are the goalies for tonight? Let me give you the goalie matchups so you have them. Antti Niemi for the Montreal Canadiens against Philip Grubauer. Did I pick the Caps already? I think I did. Let me doubly pick the Caps. Reimer and Fleury tonight. Fleury is unconfirmed. Reimer is confirmed. We don't have any confirmed goaltenders for the Ducks or the Kings, although they believe it to be Gibson and Quick. Give me the Kings. I'll take the Kings. 4-2 against Anaheim. Give me the Caps 5-2 against Montreal. And Vegas and Florida. Give me a 3-2 victory for the Vegas Golden Knights. Kings 3, Anaheim 1, says Eddie. Montreal 4, Washington 3. And Vegas 6, Florida 2. We differ on the Vegas game and the Montreal game. No way Anthony Niemi stands up to Washington Capitals offense and holds them to only 3 goals. I do not see that happening. Lots of great action tomorrow night in the National Hockey League. Specifically, the Devils and Philly should be a really good game to check out. I like the Rangers against Colorado. They're over there in Colorado. That's an afternoon game at 3 o'clock. That'll be a good one to watch. Winnipeg and Calgary should be really good. Let's see what the Pens do on their road trip. They're in San Jose tomorrow night at 3 o'clock. Toronto and Ottawa. Maybe the general managers will sit down and talk about moving Carlson over there. Islanders in Chicago. There are 2 teams that are outside of the playoffs that are struggling. That's the national game on Saturday at 8:30. So you got to wait and see what that will do. Tampa, can they rebound after the loss to Vegas against Minnesota is another interesting one for me. And it's a back-to-back for Florida as they'll be in Nashville to take on the Predators. Daniel says Ducks 6, LA 1. All right, we vary on that. And Washington 8 and the Habs 3. That's how much faith Daniel has in Antti Niemi. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right. All right, great comments all around on Facebook and YouTube tonight. Appreciate it as always, guys. And remember to share this page around. By the way, I've been seeing how much the page has been shared and the videos are being shared. And thank you for that. We slowed down in growth a little bit. We're starting to pick it up again. So that's pretty awesome. We're nearing in on 550 follows on Facebook, which is great. We got to 500 quicker than we thought we were going to. And we're picking up a little bit more steam again, which is awesome. Spotify numbers, by the way, through the roof. So for those of you listening on Spotify on the podcast, thank you so much. Continue to share that around on your social channels. Twitter, Instagram, if you can, and Facebook is an easy one. Just hit that share button when you're listening, even if you're downloading it on iTunes or streaming on TuneIn or Stitcher. Always, always appreciate it. I will see you guys Monday. Enjoy your hockey weekend. Hockey Day in Canada, I believe, right? On Saturday? Is it Hockey Day in Canada? I think that's coming up. If not Saturday, sometime soon. I think it's Saturday. That'll be a big celebration. Hockey like all day long in Canada, as if that's not every day already, but it's a special day for some of you guys. So congratulations on celebrating that. Enjoy the hockey tonight and over the weekend, and I will see you guys